Hello, hi there, everyone, and welcome back to the AI Interconnect podcast, where we explore the intersection of AI, business, and the future of real estate. I'm your host, Lauren, and today I'm joined by Dustin Parker, a co founder and CEO of the Parker Group, and the mind behind Archie, a platform aiming to simplify compliance and privacy workflows for real estate professionals. Dustin, welcome to the show. Happy to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. I Let's start from the beginning. How how did your real estate journey start, and what led you to founding the Parker Group?
Yeah, it kind of started down in an unconventional way. So my wife and I, we had a couple careers prior to real estate. We met both working in politics and running political campaigns for a number of years, and then we became educators, and so we were teachers when we got the real estate bug. And she was pregnant with our little girl, who is now 10 at the time, and we had just sold our first home. Had a pretty miserable experience in that process. We hired who we thought was the best real estate agent in town, and just were really kind of unimpressed with the process, and frustrated, and because we were expecting, we also know that weddings aren't cheap and little girls are not cheap, and so I wanted to earn a little extra income, and I decided to pursue real estate. And so, kind of on a whim, I found that the course was starting the very next day. I signed up for the course, got my license, and my license arrived, I think, the exact same day that my little girl was born. And that was 10 years ago.
Nice.
And so we fell in love with real estate. We did both real estate and teaching together for about a year, and then we took the plunge and decided that we needed to jump in with both feet. And so that's what we do now.
Oh, wonderful. I love it. Great story. Beautiful. And what were some of the early challenges you faced getting traction in the Delaware real estate market?
Yeah, so I knew very little about real estate beyond what I'd learned in the course. We'd been fortunate in that we had established our first rental property at that time, and so my experience with real estate was just selling my own home, and then managing that one rental that we had. And I joined a brokerage of really, really nice people. It's one of the older brokerages in our market, but the average age in that brokerage, I think at the time, was somewhere around 70 years old. And so, really nice people that could teach me the ins and out of a contract, but they didn't necessarily know how to generate business in today's market. And so one of the first things that I did before I ever sold a house was I hired a real estate coach. And we're still with that coaching program today. But we actually sold our cars, we sold our house, we sold everything we had to be able to take this plunge. And we were scraping pennies together to be able to hire this coach, who taught me how to generate business and how to eventually build our business in the way that it is today.
Wow. How the coaching stuff. I haven't heard this. That's the first for me. That's cool. I love it. And at what point did you start to realize there was maybe after starting a tech or operational gap that needed solving? In fact, you had an idea, I'm sure.
Yeah, so I think real estate kind of gets a bad rap for a lack of innovation over the last many decades, and I think it's justified. For the last 50 or 60 years, there's been very little true innovation in real estate. Zillow brought us the Zestimate and brought a little bit more property data to the world, which was a great layer. I remember hearing stories of old MLS books where to find out what listings were available and for sale, you'd have to actually go look at a physical book that was updated periodically. And so we have come a long way in some regards, but in many regards, I think the process today is still far too cumbersome. It takes too long. There's far too much uncertainty in the transaction itself. Buyers often don't know what it is that they're buying until they're well into the transaction phase. And so for us, after building a team and then a brokerage, and then ultimately the ancillary businesses around that, a couple of years ago, we just felt like there needed to be some bigger shifts in the way that we were operating, and that eventually is what led to the establishment of our new enterprise, Archie, which is hoping to simplify that transaction for both buyers and sellers.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about Archie. Um, and for listener who don't know, I mean, you're saying two words, but what is Archie and what problem does it solve?
Yeah. So in a traditional real estate experience, we depending on who you talk to and where the data comes from, we've heard as many as about 50% of people report crying at some point in the transaction. And so there's very few transactions where the consumers report crying half of the time. And so I think that is our first sign that there is some challenges here that we need to resolve. And so, the typical real estate transaction today takes 30, 60, 90 days, depending on the market timing. There's just so much uncertainty. If you're a seller, you've got strangers kind of trouncing through your house at any given time. You often can't buy the next house until you sell your existing house and pay off that mortgage. And so it's really just kind of a messy process. And even if you have the absolute best real estate agent on the planet, they can only do so much because of the guardrails and the constraints that they live within inside of the industry. And so with Archie, what we have done is we basically we kind of thought about this from first principles and took that white paper test and said, if we just were starting over from scratch and building a new way to buy and sell homes, what would this look like? And so for us, when a seller decides that they are ready to move, they hand us the keys and we give them a check for up to 80% of the value of their home on day one. So they can take this money, pay off their existing mortgage, they can buy their next house, move on with their life, and completely eliminate themselves from the process entirely. So they don't deal with any of that uncertainty and strangers coming to their house and all of these things that just go into that process. But that's not the end of the story for them. And so we give them this 80% upfront so they can move on with their lives. We go in, we do some light enhancements to the property, we integrate some technology into the home. And then when it sells on the open market, we share in the upside. And so the seller gets an additional check now for 60% above the 80% that we've already given them. So we truly do partner with them in this process to maximize the speed, the certainty, and the value of the home so they can make sure that they get the best absolute deal for that property without having to deal with the headache of it.
I haven't heard of this also. I love it. This is a great idea. Um, then you're building this inside a working brokerage. And what are some key lessons that came from solving your own operational pain points?
Yeah, so we've been really fortunate over the last few years to establish a tremendous leadership team. And so we have really incredible leaders and operators that run our existing brokerage, mortgage, title insurance, property management companies. And they do an exceptional job. And that's really allowed me to commit about 90% of my time to this new enterprise. And the biggest benefit, I think, to having 10 years of history in terms of sales and brokerage building is I've just been a student of the game for so long. And so I understand so many of the pain points that consumers go through as they're navigating through this process. I understand many of the models that have tried and failed. There's a graveyard of alternative models, and it's not light on graves. There's a lot of people that have tried to disrupt this industry in different ways, and we're probably in a little bit of a different time than we have been previously. Obviously with the innovations around artificial intelligence, with some of the lawsuits that have hit the industry over the last couple of years, and consumers demanding a little bit more transparency and just a better understanding of the process as a whole. I think it's a little bit different now than it has been historically. I think both consumers and technology are in a place now where they're ready for some new ideas and some new ways to navigate through this process that maybe don't involve 50% of people crying through that process.
Yeah, this is also a statistic I didn't know. The 50% person cry.
Yeah,
I like this.
it's
That's
funny. Yeah, we used to say it was 30, 33, or 36% or something. And then I was just at a conference a couple of weeks ago, and one of the executives from Zillow was there, and she heard me say that, and she said, "Our data says it's 50%." And so if Zillow says that's what the data is, then I'm assuming it's correct.
yeah, yeah, that's right. Okay. How does Archie address the growing concern about privacy and compliance in real estate?
Yeah, I mean, real estate is just filled with so much sensitive information. You've got social security numbers flying around, and mortgage information, and your personal finances and things. And so, of course, we've built our systems on the most cutting edge technology today to make sure we protect that information. We don't share or sell our data with any other third party, which so many companies do. We're not a lead company, and so we're not selling this back to real estate agents so that they pay us for your information in the end as well. And so, as we capture your data through the process as a necessary thing to do to navigate through it, we can ensure that data is secure and it's not going outside of our organization as a whole. And it's very important to us, because as a consumer myself, I want to make sure that there's just so many hacks and things. There's wire fraud, and there's just so many things happening in the industry right now that I think we need to protect ourselves against. And because we've spent 10 years in the brokerage business, we understand that very clearly, and we've brought that same level of knowledge to this new enterprise as well.
Yeah, makes sense. And have you seen regulation or client expectation evolve?
So real estate has been pretty tightly regulated in the U.S. for a number of years as it is. We have to comply with each state's brokerage laws and regulatory environment. Each MLS has its own rules that they layer on top of that. If you're a member of the local association and the National Association of Realtors, there's additional frameworks that you need to comply with. And then, of course, we have federal regulations like RESPA and other requirements that we need to make sure that we're satisfying. So I think we're trained really well as real estate agents and brokerage operators to understand the implications of privacy and compliance, and I think we do a pretty good job of protecting that in the industry as a whole. But obviously, as a new technology company now, we take that even more seriously than we had previously.
Yeah, that's great. And did you build Archie as a tool just for your own team initially, or was it always meant to be shared with the wider market?
Yeah, it's a totally separate venture from our existing businesses, and so it has the separate P&L, separate set of books. I have a co-founder who's our CTO in this business as well. We have a separate and we've raised money for Archie, and so it's the first time we've raised money for anything. So we have investors in this company. So yeah, we very much do treat it as a separate enterprise. The nice thing about having an existing brokerage with nearly 100 agents in it is that makes distribution a little bit easier for us, maybe than if I were just a technologist coming into the real estate industry trying to disrupt. Not only do we have almost 100 agents within our existing brokerage, but of course we have relationships with dozens of other brokerages and teams throughout our market and markets throughout the country. And so our goal is to really bring this to a broader market. We think that the model works really well. It provides a better experience for both buyers and sellers in a way that I think that that really resonates. We have a wait list right now of sellers that want to work with us, and it's a challenging market. We're for the last 3 years, we're borderline the fewest number of transactions that we've seen in almost 30 years in the U.S. We are seeing values now starting to come down to some extent. The transaction count has not gone up. There's just a lot of uncertainty in the market, and it's been frozen for about 3 years now. I think we've got a long road ahead of us before we come out of this, but I think this product gives people a little bit more certainty and more confidence in their move that maybe they didn't have traditionally with the old way.
Yeah, no, definitely a hard time, but many good things coming up. And you're deep in both the day-to-day business and now the tech side. What trend are you watching in prop tech or real estate tech?
Yeah, prop tech is an interesting industry. I think obviously when you look at it historically, there's been very few big winners in prop tech. A lot of venture capitalists that we talk to and friends that we have in that industry are very shy around that space specifically, because there's been a lot of tried and failed enterprises in it. Like I said, I do think we are entering a new phase of real estate now where we are going to see the digitization of real estate and the technology around that become a little bit more prevalent than it has been historically. But I think historically, I think people are a little bit nervous around this specific industry, and we've seen some of that money in terms of investment gravitate a little bit more towards fintech over the years, or now we see legal tech, especially with AI and some of the things that are happening in that space right now. But people aren't really sure where to place prop tech, and it's a big term, because it includes things like Airbnb and Zillow, and then small companies that are, redefining how to create CMAs, for clients, and little tools that people are creating that are really useful products, but obviously in a different scale than something like a Zillow or an Airbnb may be.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big term. I mean, prop tech. Um, yeah, CRE is even bigger, and I mean, there's many things. But how are brokerages reacting to AI? Are they adopting, ignoring, or someone in between?
Yeah, we've seen all ends of the spectrum, and so I've done some talks and some presentations on AI throughout the country to both brokerages and also to home builders as well. And initially, people, I think, were either scared, curious, or just unsure where to place it. And I think over the last couple of years, as it has become more embedded in the things that we do, and people have become more comfortable with the large language models and things that they're using on a daily basis, I think they're beginning to embrace it a little bit more. For the longest period of time, we kept hearing people say AI is not going to replace me, or it's not going to replace the relationship that I have with my client. And I do believe that that's true. I think that human interaction, and especially something like a real estate transaction, is a very emotional process. And I think that people want to talk to other people about that. They need as much therapy and counseling through it as they do guidance and advice from the expert in the industry as well. But I do think what AI allows us to do is it allows the humans to spend more time doing the human things. Instead of some of the administrative tasks and the things that can be automated by AI or simplified by AI, we're enabled now to spend a little bit more of our time and focus really holding the hands of our clients and explaining the process to them and educating them and being that true advisor that sometimes gets lost in the paperwork shuffle that we do on a daily basis when we're not supported by technology that can assist us.
Yeah, no, that's right. Let's talk about implementation. And what's one area in your brokerage operation where AI is clearly saving time or reducing risk as well?
Yeah. So we spent a lot of time training all of our staff and all of our agents first how to just use the LLMs. When ChatGPT came out in November of 22, for me it changed everything, because it gave me a tool that I didn't have access to before. And you could see where it was going. I think even at that early phase where there was some issues with it. It wasn't maybe as advanced as we would hope it would be. But now with GPT-5, with Grok 4, with Claude and Gemini's new products, I think what we're seeing is these things are really incredible, and they can enable us to do so many things so much better. And so some of the things that we do within our existing brokerage and our companies is we certainly use it for a reasoning. And so, like, if we're trying to solve or tackle a hard problem, maybe there's a specific transactional issue, that our broker needs advice with. And when you're the person that's responding to complaints or issues within the team, there's not necessarily another layer of person that you can go to. And so having this tool now is almost like your digital board of directors, enables you to have kind of a problem solving team around you to help solve some of these challenges that maybe were a little bit difficult. It certainly helped improve, the writing of our emails, and obviously we've trained them to be personalized in the way that resonates with our specific client base. I think from a task perspective, we've worked with many of the tool providers now to automate some of our CRM type tasks, some of our emailing type things that we do on a consistent basis. And then the transaction itself, I think, we measured something like 120 steps in the sales process when you're considering selling your home. And we believe that AI will help us automate about 80% of those over the next couple of years. And so we're slowly chipping away at each of those tasks one at a time so that we can, again, have those humans be enabled and have the time and capacity to spend more time with those human level services that our clients really hope for.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. Help on the counseling, on the contract side, or an advisor. I mean, a digital advisor. Um, any failed experiments so far, or something you thought will work that didn't on AI or
Yeah,
random?
we met someone who pretty early on in post 2022 when ChatGPT came out that had developed a really cool voice AI, and they had developed this to do cold calling for real estate agents. And it was pretty impressive, especially at that point, because I hadn't seen any other products that had reached this level of competence at that stage yet. And now there's several that do a really good job. But so we were the kind of the beta testers for this, and we decided to call our database. I don't know how many names. I think it was a test case, maybe 5,000 numbers or something with this voice AI, and it didn't go well. It was not quite where it needed to be yet. I don't think disclosure that it was an AI was clear enough that consumers felt like we were maybe trying to trick them or something. But we pulled the plug on that pretty quickly, and so that was the example of something that wasn't quite ready for public use yet. I think it probably is a little bit closer to that now, but also I don't know that that's necessarily the best way to prospect new clients. They want to, at this stage, talk to a human. I think if the client is calling your office and they're seeking information and an AI can help provide that information more quickly than a human, that's a different scenario than if you're actually outbound prospecting them. And so that was a lesson learned for sure.
Yeah, probably probably too early.
Yeah.
I can see good product right now, but very good product right now. But as you say, is it really necessary to get rid of the human touch at that point? And maybe you only need to use this chatbot for support level, or to be reached out at 3 o'clock in the morning if somebody call, and just saying we'll get back to you at 8 in the morning, leave me your number, and yeah, that's understanding, obviously. Um, where where do you see the Parker Group heading over the next 12 to 18 months? More expansion, more tech, something else?
Yeah, so I've seen a couple different markets over the last 10 years since we've been in real estate, and obviously, the boom that we had around COVID was astronomical. It was just like real estate agents were printing money for a period of time, and it was in many ways unsustainable. But to go from that to the fewest number of transactions that the U.S. market has seen in 30 years was quite the whiplash. So for us, it probably took us a solid year and a half or so to kind of settle into that new market and better understand it, and understand, that we're not going to increase or appreciate in prices 10, 20, 30, 40% year over year, like we had seen for a short period of time around COVID. And so I think for us, we've finally gotten to a place now where we've spent some time really redefining our expense structures, thinking about the type of agent that we want to recruit and bring into the company, thinking about the ideal client for us, and how we can better serve them. And so for us, we've become more efficient. We've, I think, become better agents in this market. I think we understand the complexity of the environment that we're in far better than we did just a couple of years ago. And so now I think we are poised for growth. It was kind of a repositioning, a restructuring to get us to a point of stability. And now we are looking to grow over the next couple of years as we head into, which I think will be a little bit better of a market. I think it's going to be a slow thaw as we come out of this frozen market. But I do think it's going to improve next year, and then we'll continue to improve in the years to come. So we look to ride that wave and to provide, some innovation around the process as we do that.
Awesome. And what's your vision for Archie?
Yeah, Archie is a big, ambitious vision. So as you can imagine, it's a very capital intensive business, because for every seller that we work with, we're extending up to 80% of the value of their home. And different from iBuyers and other alternative models, we actually don't take ownership of the property, and that's important to our model because it allows us to protect a lot more of that margin for both the consumer and for us as a company. We're not paying double closing costs and transfer taxes and things that go into that equation that other companies have to contend with, and it allows us to move much quicker. But for us, it's a capital management environment. So there's some financial arbitrage in terms of our business model that we have, and so There's a lot of finance that goes into that, and it's just about managing that growth effectively. As we are in this market right now, where there's high days on market, where there's fewer homes selling, there's weaker demand. We're being very thoughtful and very methodical about how do we scale up, which is why we have a wait list of sellers right now. We have the capital that we could scale up pretty much much as we would want to. But we've chosen very strategically not to at this stage. And so right now we're doing just 5 or 6 or 7 homes at a time. We anticipate that next year we may double that scale that we do at a time simultaneously. But we're not launching in 46 different markets, at the same time like some other companies have. We're not spreading ourselves too thin. We're not, deploying too much capital and getting ourselves into a difficult situation in a depreciating environment. So we're going to ride this storm out and continue to learn through the process, perfect our steps in the process to make sure that we understand our consumers and what they want a little bit more clearly. And then as the market improves, we will begin to scale up a little bit more strategically than we are currently.
Yeah, makes sense. But do you want it to become a standalone SaaS company, or always always connected to your broker DNA?
Yeah, it is. It definitely is a standalone company. I don't know that I would consider us SaaS as much as we are. We're kind of at the intersection of fintech, prop tech, legal tech, brokerage services. There's a lot of different components that we reach into. So we actually are a separate licensed brokerage in the states that we operate in as well. And then we have the technology company that's layered on top of that. So really providing the technical infrastructure to what it is that we do. And so, yeah, I think the goal is to first master the markets that we're in, which is 2 states, Delaware and Maryland. And then from there, as we begin to scale up, we'd like to spill over into the surrounding states and scale kind of strategically that way. I'm not a fan and haven't been a fan of jumping from New York to then LA to Phoenix to Boston. I think it really spreads your resources really thin. I think each market is so different. I think you lose any brand credibility that you've built in your existing market when you do that. And so for us, we will spread geographically in a way that makes sense, but not before the market supports that growth.
Yeah, no, I mean, too much risk for, I mean, with so many bad experiences in that regard. What do you think the market still doesn't get about compliance and privacy tech in real estate?
I think consumers probably don't understand the various rules and regulations that are set up to protect the industry. And sadly, I think a lot of real estate agents probably don't understand those rules. We see issues with that every day. I think that the biggest challenge that we have as an industry from delivering the best consumer experience and to make sure that we are both compliant and protecting the privacy of our consumers is that the barrier to entry to get into this business is far too low. We're dealing with the largely the most expensive asset that someone will ever trade, and it's a very emotional sale, and it's very important to the people that we are working with. And in just a couple months, you can get your real estate license. And many of the real estate agents that are helping people buy and sell homes probably have less experience than the clients that they're actually working with in that process,
Yeah.
which is really unfortunate because then if you're working hopefully with an experienced agent on the other side of the deal, they're kind of having to coach their in many ways adversary through that process. And you hope that they're doing things the right way, that they've got a good broker supporting them and some training behind the scenes that's helping them along the way. But it's just too easy to get in this industry. It's too cheap. It's too fast. It's too easy. And there's just not enough training. And I think that that's something that we should really champion more of because if we raise the bar of the industry, we're going to raise the level of service to the consumer. The consumer is going to look more favorably upon us as real estate agents and brokerages and entities within this industry. I think ultimately the experience will be better for everyone.
That's all right. And then comes what's the bottleneck for growth or to growth? Basically, you say it, market education, but maybe products or distribution. What's your take?
Yeah, I think distribution is probably the most important thing when you're launching any startup. I think we oftentimes start with the product. If you build it, they will come. And I think I don't know how many times we need to see that that's just simply not true. You can have the best product on the planet, but if people don't understand that it exists and how to get it, it doesn't matter. And so there's been many models, I think, in real estate where they've tried to disintermediate the real estate agent. And every single one of those models largely has failed, or they have shifted now to be more partners with agents. And so, having seen that, we have decided very strategically that we want to partner with agents, and we've been very much championing that from the beginning. And so, I think we are a tool that agents can use in their toolkit when they go on a listing presentation and they talk to Mr. and Mrs. Seller and they say, hey, we can list it traditionally, and here's what the process looks like. Here's what the fee structure looks like. Or there's this alternative model over here that allows you to move out immediately to get most of your cash up front and then share in the upside in the end as well. And so give the consumers the choice. And by partnering with agents and paying them a referral for those opportunities, I think it's a win-win for all parties involved.
Yeah, very true. Um, then I love to jump about yourself, about the founder, and let's get honest here. What's what has been the hardest parts of juggling both the fast-moving brokerage and launching a tech product?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things. I think it took me a really long time to find leaders and operators that could truly independently run our other businesses. And especially at the brokerage, the brokerage has kind of been our baby. That's how we entered the industry. My wife and I built that from scratch, from the brands to the systems, the operations, the people that are inside of the company now at this point. We've really been very closely involved in that since day one. And so, kind of giving the keys to someone else and allowing them to kind of take your baby and nurture it and help it grow and was a challenge. But having found the right people to do that has made that much easier. And it took many years of trial and error to find the correct people to do that. And so I think finding and attracting the right people is probably one of the biggest challenges that any business faces, especially when you are pulling yourself out of some of the day-to-day operations that you've lived in for so long. And then I think the probably the biggest one for us and today, which is probably true for most in this industry, is the market is tough. The market is really tough right now, and I don't think I anticipated just how tough it would be. It's probably the most challenging time in recent history to launch a startup that is this capital intensive. Because, like I said, days on markets in many places are at all time highs. And so when you're advancing such capital and the interest rate environment is not favorable to cheap capital right now, it just makes every single transaction very challenging. Every dollar that you spend is more expensive, and so just managing expectations around that, I think has been very challenging for us. But we're learning, and I think it's in many ways, it would have been easier to do this in a fast growing, appreciating economy. But I don't think we would have found all of the potential constraints and issues that we now have worked to resolve in that process. It's easy to win when everyone's winning. I think when everyone's struggling and the market environment is really challenging, I think that's when some of the best companies are built. And we've seen that historically over the last several decades that many of the best companies were built during recessions and difficult times. So we're really treating this like a learning opportunity in a way to refine our business and to make it better and to make it strong so that when the market does turn back on, we're ready for astronomical growth around that.
That's true. Hang on, and congratulations for your success. Anyway, it's never easy to run a company, neither two of them, uh, head to head. Any advice you'll give to another brokerage founder thinking about building their own tools like you did?
Yeah, I think we've seen a lot of people in the industry that have come at it from a purely tech perspective. And those companies tend to struggle because they don't understand the nuance of the industry and the transactions and the processes that we go through. And then I think there have been a lot of people on the real estate side who've tried to build tech products and they struggle on the tech side because they don't understand maybe how difficult it is to actually build technology and some of the constraints around that. And so I think if you're in the brokerage business or if you're in the industry and you have you have an interest in building a technology product, I would suggest finding a co-founder that you know and trust that is the technologist, because I think that's where the true magic happens. Is when you bring those two things together, you can bring the domain expertise of your industry while they do the same for theirs. And that's been instrumental for us at Archie. I have an exceptional co-founder who's been in technology for 15 years. And having that experience on that end of things, and then my experience on this end of things, I think is what has allowed us to be successful thus far.
Yeah, that's great. Um, what do you do differently? Uh, what would you do differently if you had to start Archie again today?
I think I probably would have been a little bit more thoughtful about the market environment that we were in. It's been such an appreciating market, such a fast moving market for a number of years now. I mean, I rode nearly a 10-year uh, incline in terms of the market. And the music stops for everyone at some point. And so I think, we had assumed when we launched that we would just go full tilt and scale and go big. And we very quickly learned that the market will humble you fast. And so I think having eyes a little bit wider open as we entered the market that we were in probably would have been helpful. But we adjusted quickly. We're not in a position where we're out of cash or we're going to go out of business. But we did have to adjust our model to some extent. We had to adjust our expectations, and we've decided that instead of just fighting against headwinds as hard as we can, we're going to ride the wave, and we're going to be strategic about our growth and be methodical about how we enter this market. And as the market improves, then so will we.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, you're talking about market timing, and market timing is so difficult, even though on the market, the stock market, the futures market timing is, I mean, you never catch the bottom, you never sell at the top, and but you can ride a wave. That's what you say. That's great. I love it. Um, let's end with a few quick fire questions. No overthinking. Um, your favorite prop tech tool besides Archie? Archie.
Shoo, I don't know if it's prop tech as much, but I am obsessed right now with the Google's Gemini product. I think
Yeah,
their
AI tool. Yeah, okay. Yeah,
the 2.5 Pro with Deep Think, and it costs a little bit of extra money to get that version of it, but I think it's truly exceptional. And I've used all the products, and I still use all of them today. But what I've seen come from Google recently, I think people are sleeping on them a little bit. All the media and noise is around all the other companies, but I'm very long on Google.
very interesting. Yeah, you're using it over on your workspace, on Google Workspace, integrated, and yeah, I was thinking touching it. I haven't, but okay. A book or podcast that changed how you lead.
Mhm. Yeah, I a lot of times when there's someone a young founder and they're asking for advice, I send them a couple different books that really were influential to me in my journey. And the two that I really like to give are The Hard Thing About the Hard Things by Ben Horowitz,
Yeah,
my partner,
yeah,
Andreessen Horowitz. I think it's the Bible on business. I think it so clearly explains the challenges that we go through as CEOs and founders in a way that's just an enjoyable read. And I go back to that book often. And then the second one, which is a little bit more philosophical, but I think is really important as a foundation, is Good to Great by Jim Collins. And I think that those two together, if you can master
awesome.
the information in those two books, you'll be in good shape.
Yeah, I wrote them. That's cool. Um, one tech founder you admire?
Yeah, there's so many tech founders that I always joke that you wish they were the heroes that they could be. Sometimes, they aren't quite the heroes that you wish they would be. But no, there's so many that I admire. I mean,
No, of
I'm
course.
Steve Jobs' biggest fan. I've read all the books and listened to all the podcasts that really analyzed his career. I think he thought about business and technology in a way that hadn't been thought of before. And now, everyone's copying and emulating, the ideas that he had at this point. But he's just done a tremendous job, or did a tremendous job, with Apple. I think Apple's missing him today. I think we've seen, maybe not as much innovation as we would have if he were still here today. I think Jeff Bezos is an incredible operator. I think he has really, from a systems thinking perspective, really made Amazon into just something that's absolutely incredible that probably doesn't even get as enough credit as it deserves today. And so those two are probably pretty near the top of my list.
Yeah. No, very cool. What's a common mistake or common compliance mistake agent keep making?
I think that agents don't read the contracts well enough and understand the contracts well enough. And so the industry has made it so easy to fill in the blank. And we have even software that enables us to fill in the blank more quickly. And in doing so, I think it's kind of made us dumber, because we haven't actually stopped and sat and read those contracts as well as we should. And so I think it's really important that before you have your client sign this really important contract that is potentially a three or four or $500,000 $1 million sale involving it, you should understand it word for word.
Yeah.
Every page, every addenda, every disclosure that's involved in it. You really need to read it thoroughly and understand it, because if you don't, and you find yourself in a jam at some point, it could cost you a lot of money. It could cost you a lot of grief and potentially your job.
Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, this contract, you can have you can have them reviewed by lawyers, but maybe you can drop it also on ChatGPT or something like this to to have it summarized. Maybe an advice for your agent. Um, okay, then I think I have the answer for the next one. What's one thing AI will never replace in real estate?
Yeah, I think it's really tough to create that emotional connection that humans have with each other, and that
Yeah.
counseling, therapy, that affirmation that they seek so deeply. And it'll be interesting because I'm a techno optimist. I think that AI is going to bring abundance to the world. It's going to do so many good things, and even in even in places of creativity and art, I think it's going to do incredible things. But it's yet to be proven that that people will sit in a theater and watch AI on stage versus a human. We haven't reached that point yet. I don't know that we ever will, because there's just something that connects us to one another that makes us more interested in one another. And so I think that continuing to nurture that human connection, continuing to make sure that we are providing that emotional support that we need through these big transactions, I think is the role that we will always play.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I agree. But we'll see where the future is taking us. AI is a powerful guy. We'll see what happens. Dustin, this was a great conversation. Thanks for walking us through both your business and the builder side of your story. Um, what the best place for people to learn about more about you? The Parker Group or Archie?
Yeah, you can find me on all the socials. You can check out the Parker Group at just theparkergroup.com, or Archie at archiehub.com as well. But you can find me in all those places, and I'm happy to continue the conversation.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you so much. That was
Thank you.
very insightful, great conversation, and hopefully we'll do it again in a year from now. We'll see what happens. Thank
Thank you.
you. And that's it for today's episode of the AI Interconnect. And if you enjoyed it, share it with someone who is building the future, or even better, someone who should be. And until next time, stay curious, stay creative, and keep building. Thank you.